training, which is referred to as talent development at Deloitte, is really the primary area within Deloitte because our product within Deloitte is our people. And it's not an object. We don't create a car, manufacture a car. So it's a wonderful type of organization for an HR person to work in because what we do for a living is so integral to our product. And I think that's a uniqueness that I wanted to convey today. Not that HR is not important if you work at a car dealership, let's say, but it's just that's not the main focus. We're here. We put a lot of time, effort, and energy into training our individuals. So would we have training programs, classes, or classes, mentoring? Absolutely, because our product is people. And so we develop all levels of our people, starting with the more junior. And I think what I would quickly convey is that the more junior a person is, the more technical the training. So what is it that they need to go out to their client and do that what do we get paid for by the client? What is that end product? They need to know how to do that. So sometimes we hire liberal arts majors that don't necessarily know technology, but we bring them in and we train them on the technology, but we know they would be great consultants because of their liberal arts background. That's just an example. So the more junior they are, the more technical the training, but we train all the way up through our owners of the business, which are our partners, and they get more strategic level training. But absolutely, we have mentoring programs throughout the organization. We are a world leader when it comes to women's initiative trainings and inclusion. So we started what we called a women's initiative, over 18, almost 20 years ago now. And we just noticed that women weren't staying in our organization at the most highest levels. So we have a whole program around that. But again, the mentoring programs that we have are also at all levels. And I think that's something that's important to understand is that it doesn't you don't come into our organization and get trained and then it stops. It continues on even for the owners of our business. And one way to kind of put an exclamation point behind that is we just built an 800-room world-class training learning facility just this past year that opened in August, and it's located in Texas. So for everyone who comes through Deloitte now will be kind of indoctrinated and get to go through these training facilities in Texas. In a nutshell, ours is a 5-point rating scale, 1 being the highest, 5 being the lowest. It begins at the beginning of the fiscal year. Our employees set goals, and they sit down with their counselors. And those goals include, what technical skills do they need to develop, what soft skills, and those soft skills would include what training do they need to go to. So then there would be a mid-year touch point, is what we call it. And we basically sit down with our counselor and say, are they on track or are they off track? And, if they're off track, then the conversation gets a lot longer. On terms of what they need to do. If they're on track, that's great. Keep up the good work kind of thing. Performance evaluations from the project leaders, depending on how many they worked for. And then the counselor will synthesize all of that information and then come up with their recommendation for what that rating would be. So a consensus meeting. So all of our counselors get in a room and say, for a particular practice area. And all those counselors listen to each other and say, well, I think Molly's a 1, but, somebody else may say, well, my counselee did all of those same things plus X, Y, and Z. So we try to compare and contrast. We have written standards that we compare people to, but there's also a little bit of let's make sure everyone grades the same because there can be grade inflation just based on how an individual counselor would grade. So at the end of the year, that's how we come up with what your final rating would be. So it is a formal process with, informal touch points along the way. To implement a new HR program, where the program, at its core, was a culture change. So you're coming out with this new program, and you have to sell it. Quite frankly, you have to kind of become a salesperson for this program, and you have to sell it to leadership. Because if the leadership at the highest levels of the organization don't buy into it, then they won't then turn around and talk to the individuals in their practice and sell it as well. So we've had successes with that, and we've had failures with that. And failures really would stem from the leadership not getting on board, because you just can't. HR can only do so much, and if you don't have leadership support, then it just won't work. And so it's really, as you may hear people say, it's really a top-down programmatic change management, where change management is driven from a top-down perspective and through communication, and that's absolutely key.